Hi, this is Susan. Welcome to Cooking with Clay. We're using polymer clay. And I hope that you saw my first video because there's lots of tips and tricks. Now, right before that, I did a food booth and I did turkey legs. And I did Coney Island. Corny dogs. I keep calling them Coney Islands. I guess I should make that. And so there was corn, roasted corn. And so I wanted to show you some things about that. But, before you get started, you need tools. So this is a cheese slicer. And I got it at the thrift store. So that's a great one for slicing your clay. I use my needle tool a whole lot. And then just your simple craft knife is good for cutting. And something, you can use the end of a paintbrush, or you can use an actual craft tool. And that, is for poking round. And then there's some other things in the desserts. Now, I was telling you in the booth that I made the turkey legs, that I made the little tin. And I just took a piece of a pie tray and use your embosser to bring up the edges and then cut off the corners and get it to this point. And then I use this dog food tray this is an HEB brand, and I don't know if they have other brands, but be on the lookout see this wonderful texture. Right there is where I cut out the piece and then put it on the inside, just glue it on the inside of this. And then you have something that looks like it's kind of something you would grill and put things on. And it gives it an interesting texture behind your cooking, your turkey legs. Okay, so I've got a tan color and I've changed it to be more the color of poultry. And I don't know if that's what I originally used. I think I originally used the tan, but I'm going to go with this for right now. This is about a 1/2 inch ball. And all I'm doing is, for the turkey legs, is like coming down on it, because this has got to be skinnier. And just kind of, doing this number to get it bigger at the top, skinnier at the bottom. And that's, what they look like. And then shaping turkey leg. And then I'm using the needle tool to kind of press an interesting shape where the bone does, that shape at the end. And the one that I wanted to show you was this that's got a bite out of it. And you're basically, turkey, if you've eaten a turkey leg, it has a lot of tendons. If you're taking, the meat off of a turkey leg, you really fight those tendons. So that's what you're doing, is carving out, but you're still leaving some striations. So you want to make it look like bite marks, but, carved out to keep the tendons. Okay, so the next thing is you want to paint the inside some pink before you start dabbing on the brown, because, when you're cooking, it's always pinker in the middle, especially close to the bone. And so then I just came in with some colors that I mixed. And I've got them over here. I mixed some yellow for the corny dog in with the brown. The corny dog is just simply a skewer that I cut into pieces and just molded the clay in a teardrop. And so you can see, if you mix the yellow with the brown, you get that golden brown. Let's see, that's right in here, that golden brown color. And then this is the medium brown with some dark brown and then some red. And that's simply, I'm just going to go and add colors. Just dab colors onto it. I don't want it to be solid, because when you're barbecuing, it's not going to come out solid. It's going to come out with colors, varying colors. But you need to have the red down in. And don't forget to texture. I did texture. Here's See, you can see texture. There's dots and swipes and strokes. And I just did all this with the needle tool. And so as you swipe at it with color, then you'll come back in with some dark. Put some dark to look like it's been on the grill. It needs the dark color added. And on meats like hot dogs and things, they get the grill marks. So you don't want to forget the grill marks. Okay, so it's coming around. It's a little difficult to paint behind the camera, but you're looking to get different colors, varying colors, so that it looks like it's been on the grill and picked up some color from being that pale. Okay, so and the thing with the corn, now of course it's textured, and here's a piece that I made that I just barely did any kind of, I just did the hash marks on the corn, so you can see faint hash marks. Now if it's put onto a grill, it seems like it would get more texture look to it, and then you want to come back and just dry brush the slightest of the brown, light, medium light brown, to make it look roasted. And so that's how that works. And the other tools the other things that you want to try to use is, this is that Lazy Susan that goes around. When you're making a piece, it's always good if you have one of these, and that was an old spice rack. And then the other thing is to get one of these pieces of tile, make sure it's good and flat, to put into I put it in my toaster oven. And the toaster oven, you can't do the temperature up high like you can in that regular oven. I run it at about 165 Fahrenheit for like 12 minutes on a 1/4 inch piece. And maybe, if it's a big piece, then, maybe just a little bit longer, maybe another couple of minutes. But the first thing I did, I set it on fire when I had it at 265, 275, like the clay says. I mean, it just cooked it. So you can use those, but my experience is a lot less temperature. Okay, so you also want to have chalks. Chalks are great. And this bread, it started out in looking like this bread. And so all I did was just, you're just molding the shape of what looks like bread to you, a loaf of bread, and then you're texturing the inside surface. The outside top is always smooth. The bottom, give it a little bit of texture around the bottom. And if you cut a piece, you'll need to, you can use your craft knife, but I found that this razor, this safety kind with its cover, it's really good. And you might have to go around the piece to cut it, but this works just a little bit better than the craft knife. So okay, so you want to use your, Sorry. You want to use your chalk, and then you'll need to seal it, or else every time you pick it up, you're going to get chalk all over your hands. And that's the other thing that's really important to remember when you're working in clay is use like towels, an old towel, or something with a rough texture to clean your hands all the time. You need something with texture that'll get this clay out of the pores of your, and the lines in your hand, get the clay into it. And then especially when you're using the chalk, wash your hands, because I messed up a piece that I made last night. I just picked it up to see how it was drying, and I just left finger marks all over it. So you don't want to do that. So I hope you'll go and look at that first video. It's about desserts, and I'm going to finish up the second dessert video. And so let's look at some things. Now, here's a pumpkin pie, and we all love beer caps and Coca-Cola caps. All the soda caps, water caps, you just save these anywhere you find them because they just make the best pies. And it's all polymer clay and chalk is what I came back and did the edge. And I did this one last night to make, saw something about a pot pie, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make a pot pie. Okay, so first I made all these little pieces to put in the pot pie, thinking it would show. And then I realized after I started making it that, this is supposed to look like peas, carrots, onions, potato, meat of some sort. But I realized it's not going to show at all. So you can make a pot pie. But these are the things, these are called snakes. When there's, all different size snakes. So when you hear snake, you're always rolling, those lines. And I rolled a whole bunch of food-colored snakes, and then I cut them into pieces depending on, what I think I'll make with them. And then you use them because it tricks the eye to think that you've made green beans. And then you're using resin. You tint your UV resin just the slightest bit, or your 2-part resin if you're in an opaque thing that it won't dry. You might need the 2-part, but this is gonna, it's gonna cure on the top, and that's basically where you're concerned about it. And so this is all those colors that, and you tint it with these little pigment. I got a whole bunch of these on Temu, a box of them, and this one's coffee, and it just tints so wonderfully. And if you were doing a chicken or turkey dish, there's like a golden, you could put just a dot. You don't always want to use a drop. Sometimes you just want to get a dot on your needle tool and put that in, or your toothpick, not a whole drop, because like a whole drop of coffee is going to be very dark if you're doing turkey broth. But that's always fun. So it's always good to make these, especially if you have leftover colors that you mixed, and then cut them up. And you've got, carrots, potatoes, onions, and some meat. Like that would look like chicken. This would look like beef or even sausage. Just, you have a great use for them. And you'll use them, later. So, okay, so let me show you. I want to go ahead and use the chalk on this and show you. You need to get a little bit of water. It helps. You can do it dry, but I think the water helps a little bit more. Now this is just, I put, like I said, I thought I needed the ingredients. So this is just a cap that I put some clay down in it to fill it up, and then I put those little pieces in there, and then realized this is just rolled out, and then while it's on your mat, you pink it to get it to a dome shape, or you can like put it over a dome. If you have like something, plastic, whatever, that's a dome shape, you can lay it over it, but it's just a thin rolled out piece of clay. Now I just used my hands to flatten this out, but it's always a great idea to get a roller. And this is something I got off Temu. And then they also had this set that was this, I haven't taken out of the plastic. That's, well, sorry, I've got the plastic on it. That's this, and I guess this is plastic sheet. I haven't used this yet. So this can, you know, roll whichever is, you know, easier for you. Now here's a big tip is when you're doing clay, I don't want to do it on my mat and mess up my mat or anything. So I use these pieces of plastic, and it's so important to write the color so you don't transfer color. That is so important. Red clay will transfer on everything. And this one is only for white. Only for white. And then the back side of it, only for black if I need to do black. But it's a great idea to just label them and then just stick them in your tub with your clay. I have a whole tub. And you know, I have clays that are like 15, so 20 years old. And they have a product. I've always used Vaseline. And I think this is really baby oil. It says use it in drops, and I really think it's baby oil, but it's by Sculpey, and it's clay softener and thinner. And I've been using this, and I think that's why I say baby oil at Dollar Tree would be cheaper. And this is the adhesive that they have. Now you have to bake this. If you use this, you have to bake the adhesive to get the things to stay permanently. Or they just keep falling off. So make sure you bake it after you put that on there. And I did try using my 3-in-1 glue. I tried using my tacky glue, and I could not get things to stick together on the clay when I was trying to do a gingerbread house. And I'm going to be working on that one for a while because I had nothing but trouble. So I found out some things. Now, there are some things that a lot of times, and I said this in the other video, things are made by like a carver, a master carver that, you know, can carve like a gingerbread house. And so they're making a mold. They're doing a one-time carve. They're making a mold, and then they're pouring resin, and then they just, you know, stamp paint those. And they look like they're carved out of clay and pieces. It looks like a lot of work. And yours doesn't turn out as well. Well, that's because they're made differently. And they're poured resin, and then they're painted, you know, by professional painters. Professional carver makes it just like they would make jewelry. So you have to keep that in mind, and don't beat yourself up when yours isn't turning out as well, because things aren't the same as what they used to be. And when, you know, we first started with miniatures, like I didn't know about chalk until more recently when I came back to miniatures. Okay, this got too much water, but, ooh, this has got brown in it. I'm putting brown instead of golden. Okay, so we want to make I'm sorry, I'm trying to take this brown off. I don't know what I used it on. Must have been something last night, so I've got to clean it. Okay, so we want to use the chalk to make things look cooked and golden. And so we're just going along the edges and, you know, so you do want, you know, the color in the general range of the color. And then you can do more than one color because it doesn't cook, you know, completely one color. It's going to cook a few different colors. Now, I'm making a mess of this. I think I've got too many colors on this brush. Because I've used it for too many things. And there's a lesson in that, you know, use more than one brush. And so I've seen where people have taken those little tiny Dollar Tree or I don't know, you can get them at craft stores, things like this, and they'll shave some of the chalk and put them in those. And that way they're easy to access, and you're not touching a mess of chalk, you know, because chalk breaks and it gets all messy. So I think that's like a really good idea if you're going to make very much food, or if you're a, you know, somebody who crafts all the time. So, okay, so say amazing difference. Now I need to take a detail brush and get in a little bit better into those slots. But so simple. This was so simple, and it's now one of my favorites. So I do want to take a detail brush, and I want to like go in and give it even more color in those slots of brown, put a little more brown to it. But we've got such a long video, I just want to show you the general things. Now this is the sweet potato pie. This is the pumpkin pie, and you can see the color difference. And I went with watered down black, and I just dabbed, because you know how when you pull it out, it's got some dark spots. I did some dark spots on it. And so if you're watching this before Thanksgiving, really keep your eye on everything as it comes out from being cooked. So then you'll have a good idea about it, how the texture is. So look at all the meats and the casseroles and everything, and see the textures, the colors, and any spots, any cooking differential things about it. And then you'll know how to make yours. And if you don't have Thanksgiving, like people at me in Great Britain don't have Thanksgiving, and so just make a meal, make a fun meal, and you know, enjoy you're thankful for your ability to craft. I think it's just so fabulous. I don't know what I'd be doing if I wasn't crafting at this age. We built things, and, you know, full-size things, but, you know, you get older and you can't do things like that. So this is just the most wonderful thing. I'm just so blessed to be able to craft and share this with you. I really feel that strongly about it. And so let me show you. Okay, so this is sweet potato pie, you know, is a little bit yellower. And so simply, here's what I do. Here's a bead cap. And I just roll a snake, just a fat one, and then I start pressing it to the inside so that it grabs onto the edges. And first I spread the edges. It's up to you, because if you spread the edges, then you get a bigger pie. So these are spread edges, and so you can see they're spread out. It's up to you if you want it more condensed or spread out as to the size of the pie. Then I just take a rolled up ball, and I just kind of, not too big, you can always add more, and put that in there. Press that in. And then the next thing is I take the paintbrush end of the paintbrush and just start pressing, and try to, you know, just get past the center, not press into the center, and then just go around methodically and make your pastry marks. And it's just that simple. And then this is just white clay that you know, take a little ball and twist into a little fluffy looking peaky thing. And then after that, then, you know, get your chalk and do your baking, the look of baking. Oh, in our family, we had a tradition. My grandfather used to go to this one bakery and get Swedish rye bread, and it was so good. And they would heat up slices of it, or he'd bring it home from the bakery warm, and it was just so great. And everybody just like dive into the kitchen to get a piece of the Swedish rye bread. So I made a piece and put the little pieces to look like butter, just to remind me of my grandparents. Oh gosh, we had such nice times. Thanksgiving was such a big time. And Christmas dinner, but more Thanksgiving. Okay, so this was my first turkey. Now, before the other night, I got out my food, and this was actually painted with nail polish. Can you imagine? Nail polish. So I took the nail polish remover, and the funny thing is the leg is upside down in this. So somewhere along the way, I realized that the leg went the other direction, and I made this one. Mind you, it was not covered in nail polish. But I did put chalk on them the other night. So they were kind of just a, like a tan color. And so I covered them. But actually, I want to say that the color of, let me show you the difference in tan and then what you need to do for poultry. If you're doing poultry, you need to add yellow and a little bit of white maybe, but definitely some yellow because it's more this color. And this is called ecru. I don't know if they still have the same colors. When I got this, it was called ecru. This is tan, but you can add the yellow to the tan. And then that will look more like your, what the color is. Okay, I found this plastic. It has a lid, but I'm going to have to make some other lid. I took the edge off of it, and I'm going to paint it to look like that sparkly look. I mean, the blue or black or red with the white spots on it. But I wanted to get this out before Thanksgiving, so I don't know. I'll try to do it the next few days. But I haven't painted one. I don't know if plastic's going to be okay with spray paint or if I need to use enamels or what. So anybody who sees this video, let me know what you think, what your experience has been with painting plastic. So I'm excited to see how that turns out because I have these pans in my dollhouse. And so I wanted to make it look like the old pans. Okay, so get your turkey legs up. I think this is the correct way. Now, funny enough though, when I sold dollhouse stuff, this was the turkey platter. And I think that is the funniest. I guess it was turkey. I don't suppose it was chicken. But I think it is the funniest looking turkey. It just, I don't know. It just looks so funny to me when I see it. It just makes me laugh. And of course they put, eggs? These look like eggs and not potatoes. But some carrots and some greenery there. You want to add your greenery for parsley, I guess. And I don't know what's sliced up. And so anyway, there's a platter. Funny. I think we can do better. Okay, so I'm going to make mine. I'm going to cooking mine. So this came out now. If I did this today, I certainly would do these thinner. This is too thick right through here. And I would just work on, thinning this, giving it texture, which it doesn't have any texture. And I did stuff it. Look at all that. So the stuffing came out great. If you're into stuffing, I've never stuffed a turkey in my life, but my grandmother taught me how to do the turkey, and that was to do everything. We did it all separate pans. We didn't stuff the turkey, but I know a lot of people do. So, stuff your turkey. Okay, so here is something I found in my stash. Most of this is like 20 years old or something. That, every so often I bring it out, the clay out, and for a week I'll make like vegetables. And so I don't know how long this has all been. But so I was working on making a better turkey. I guess this is a turkey, not a chicken. But interesting, I mean, the way it's, when it's in the bag and you're thawing it, it looks like this. And then it starts unfolding and kind of, the legs come out and the wings. So maybe that's a turkey. It does have. So this is that color that it starts out kind of the yellowy tan. So I had some other meats and things I wanted to share with you. Now, if you haven't ever seen an extruder, look up an extruder on the Temu had one, and probably on eBay as well. I'm sure that the miniature sellers have an extruder. And basically it looks like a syringe of sorts, but you have all these adapters that I couldn't get it. Mine's in my tubs, and it's not even a good one. It's not even a current one because it's at least 20 years old. And you don't want one where it's so hard to plunge the clay. If they have a crank, I'm going to get a crank next time I buy one. But these tips change out, and you might have a round one or a elongated one, a flower one, but when you put the clay in, it needs to be softened and kneaded before you put it in, because it's so stiff. You know, if you pack in hard clay, it's just so hard to get it to come out the other end. But that is how I used my extruder to make bacon. And you use translucent with bacon. See the translucent, the color change? And that's the most important, is in meats that you use translucent. This is what it is. And see, it says translucent. The other thing that's really important is when you take this out of the package, that you keep this packaging with it, because you'll mistake this for another color like ivory or tan or something, and you need to make sure you keep the translucent name with it, so you can always find it and you can always know what it is. Because if you put it in something else, you're going to get a different look when you cook it. So you use this to make fat. Now, none of these have been colored. These are supposed to look like meats that haven't been cooked yet. Now this one, I didn't use translucent. I had a piece of clay I was mixing with the tan and the ivory kind of color, and I was like, hey, that looks like fat too. So you don't have to have translucent to get that effect, but it is better. And like, I was making egg yolks, and I went ahead and put translucent with them just to see how it turned out. So see, you layer it in with it, and then put it side by side, make 2 snakes, and put them into your extruder, and then it comes out, your bacon strips come out with both colors and the translucent. Okay, so here's a roast with the bone, and it's got some translucent mixed in with the color. So I didn't completely mix it, so you can still see the marbling effect. And that's what they call that marbling in meat. So that's what you want to see. And the egg yolks, you might want to put them in the tiny little egg yolks, because they're not meant to be. I'll show you the difference. Oh, here's some more meats. Here's more of the steak kind of. This came out of the extruder. This little pile of meat to look like ground meat, and put a hole in it to make it look like. Now the difference, sometime back, I don't know why or what, I used my needle tool. I didn't have the extruder out, and I used the needle tool to see how it would look. I don't know what meat this is supposed to be, but I actually just did this with the needle tool. And so it is much better to have the extruder. You get a really fine, round, ground look, and pile of meat. But you can do without it and use your needle tool to make the meat look like that. Okay, so see this egg? This is like super yellow. So I put some translucent in there to see if it brought down the yellow, if it made it look any more. I don't really see much of a difference, but you kind of need to bring the yellow color down in the yolk. And of course, there's always brown eggs, white eggs, brown eggs, and it's lots of fun to make things with that. Now here's the ham that I made, And you definitely want the translucent in the hand because there's so much big pieces. I've got the bone in there, and then you can see the translucent, especially in the slice. And then I think I must have put Mod Podge, either Mod Podge or fingernail polish. I used clear fingernail polish back in before I came back to miniatures, so it might have been fingernail polish. And then these are supposed to be the hash marks, you know, are important because of the rind. And then you put the little cloves when you're baking it. Sometimes people put cloves. So that's the color it started out. But here's the piece that they made. This was an expensive piece. I remember, you know, buying this, and I had you had to find it in the dollhouse, so it was a way of getting people to look at the different auctions that I was running off of eBay, or on eBay, that linked to my website. And so this was actually, I hid it in the baby bed. And so this woman, who actually was a seller, she said, "Oh, don't send it to me. I'm a seller too." And I said, "Oh no, you won. I'm going to send it to you." And so she guessed. She was the only one that guessed that it was in the baby bed. But this is actually a piece of resin. So they carved the shape, and then they, you know, poured resin and then just painted it. So all their striations are just painted. And then this greenery here, I don't know what they used, if maybe it's polymer clay. And the little eggs, and then it's just some kind of plastic tray. But we can do better. And then something else I wanted to show you is the this little egg, the resin. This is from a long time ago. I'm trying to find something clear to show you that the resin has yellowed. You can see that it's yellowed. So I was going to try to make this over again. That's why I made the little yolks and put the translucent in them. I maybe need to put more of the translucent in them because, you know, how yolks have a lot of the egg white all around them. But so you just take the tiniest bit for the eggshell to look like this one. You take the tiniest bit of white and just cup it, but let it get hard after you've kneaded it, you know. And I put a tiny bit of tan into it so it wasn't so stark white. And then I cup that tiny little bit onto the ball, and then you're going to have to gently put it on your surface that you cook on, whether you use a pie tin or a okay, I've lost it. It's so tiny. Whether you use a pie tin or a ceramic tile, you know, you're going to have to cook them. So that would be fun. And then when you get them all made, then you can come in with your resin, your UV resin, and, you know, you can tint your resin or not. It depends on, it's pretty white, actually pretty clear, the yolk. So I guess it wouldn't need any tint then. And then, or you'd end up with it looking like the one that's gotten so much age. So there you go. A little eggshell. Tiny little eggshells. Fun. They're cute and fun. Okay, so all you have to do is just make a meal. Just have fun with this. And especially if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, you should make a meal anyway. You should have fun with it. So please come back. And then if you haven't seen the other videos, go and look at all the desserts. And I've continued on with the desserts using different, those were like 20 years ago or so. And so I've continued on using some tips and things that I've learned recently off YouTubers. And so I'm going to do another video after this of more of the sweets and share those with you. So y'all have a great time. Okay, bye-bye.